Your life is leaking through your fingers right now, and the worst part is you've been trained not to notice. Every time you reach for your phone during a conversation, every time you open a second screen while watching something, every time you feel that compulsive urge to check just one more thing, you're not just losing minutes, you're losing the fundamental capacity that separates a meaningful existence from a hollow one. Your attention isn't just some productivity metric or self-help buzzword. It is the resource that determines whether you will build something that matters or drift through decades as a passive consumer of other people's creations. Here's what nobody tells you about the attention crisis. It's not about screen time. You can delete every app, throw your phone in a drawer, and still be completely incapable of sustained focus because the damage runs deeper than your devices. Your neural pathways have been remodeled. The infrastructure of your consciousness has been renovated to prefer novelty over depth, stimulation over contemplation, reaction over creation. When you sit down to work on something difficult, your brain doesn't just resist the hard task. It actively generates phantom urgencies, false problems that feel critical in the moment but evaporate the second you give in to them. You'll suddenly remember you need to check if someone responded to your message from 3 days ago. You'll feel an inexplicable need to verify a random fact that has zero bearing on your current work. These aren't random thoughts. They're your brain running a program designed to pull you away from discomfort. The reason rebuilding your attention feels impossible is because you're trying to fight a war on the wrong battlefield. You're relying on motivation, on that mythical future version of yourself who will suddenly possess ironclad discipline. That person doesn't exist. Motivation is weather. It comes and goes with your mood, your sleep quality, your blood sugar levels. What you need instead is architecture. You need to build systems that make focused work the path of least resistance and distraction the path of most resistance. This isn't about becoming some superhuman productivity machine. It's about accepting that you are a biological organism with predictable vulnerabilities and designing your environment accordingly. Start with this truth. Your brain will always choose the easier dopamine source. Always. If scrolling is available and the work is hard, you will scroll. This isn't a character flaw, it's evolutionary wiring. Your ancestors survived by conserving energy and seeking immediate rewards. The modern world has weaponized this against you by making infinite, easy rewards available at all times. So the first step isn't building discipline, it's removing options. When you need to do deep work, your environment should contain exactly one viable source of stimulation, and that source should be the work itself. Not phone in another room, not apps deleted, apps never installed, internet shut off, door closed, every possible escape route sealed before you begin. But here's where most people fail, even after they've locked down their environment. They sit down, eliminate all distractions, open their work, and then immediately feel like they're suffocating. That crushing sensation of mental claustrophobia that makes you want to jump out of your skin. This is the moment that destroys most attempts at focus, because people interpret this feeling as a sign that something is wrong. They think they're not inspired, not ready, not in the right headspace. They're interpreting a symptom as a diagnosis. That suffocating feeling is actually your brain detoxing from constant stimulation. It's withdrawal, and like any withdrawal, it gets worse before it gets better. You have to sit in that discomfort without flinching. Not for hours, just for 15 minutes. That's the threshold. What happens after those 15 minutes is almost magical, but it's not magic at all. It's neurochemistry. Your brain realizes that no rescue is coming, no stimulation is available, and it stops generating emergency signals. The panic subsides, your prefrontal cortex comes back online, your working memory expands. Suddenly, the work that felt impossible 10 minutes ago becomes almost meditative. This is the state that every meaningful accomplishment in your life has come from, and you've been locked out of it because you've never been willing to sit through the entry price. The entry price is always discomfort. Always. Once you've experienced even one session of genuine deep focus, something shifts in your understanding of what you're capable of. You realize that everything you thought was a limitation was actually just a lack of practice. The book you thought would take 6 months to write could be done in 6 weeks if you could access this state daily. The business you thought required years of grinding could be built in months. The skill you thought was beyond you could be mastered in the fraction of the time. Not because you're working harder or longer, but because you're finally working with your full cognitive capacity instead of operating at 20%, while the other 80% bleeds out through 1,000 micro-distractions. The people who seem to accomplish impossible amounts of work aren't superhuman. They're not smarter or more talented. They've simply learned to deploy their attention like a weapon rather than scattering it like confetti. When you watch someone produce a year's worth of output in a month, you're not witnessing genius. You're witnessing someone who has trained themselves to think in hours-long, unbroken chains rather than minute-long fragments. The compound effect of sustained attention is so powerful that it looks like magic to people who've never experienced it. But it's available to you right now. Not someday when you're more disciplined. Today, this hour, this moment.
Here's what rebuilding your attention actually requires. Not inspiration, not the perfect morning routine, not a new app or technique. It requires you to make a decision that your attention is worth protecting with the same ferocity you'd protect your physical safety. Because in a very real sense, your attention is your life. Every moment of attention you surrender is a moment of your existence you'll never get back. When you give your attention to something, you're giving your life to it. When you let your attention be fragmented and stolen thousands of times a day, you're letting your life be fragmented and stolen. You're volunteering for a slow dissolution of your consciousness, one notification at a time. The beautiful and terrifying part is that everything can change the moment you decide it will. Not gradually, not eventually, immediately. You can finish this video, put your phone in a drawer, sit down with one hard task, and refuse to move for 30 minutes. You'll feel like you're drowning for the first 15, and then something will crack open. You'll remember what your mind feels like when it's actually yours. That first session won't produce your best work. It will produce something better. It will produce evidence that you're not broken, that your brain isn't permanently damaged, that you can still think in the way humans were meant to think before we all agreed to become notification response machines. That evidence will give you permission to try again tomorrow, and again the next day. And within weeks, you'll look back and barely recognize the scattered, reactive person you used to be. This is your one life, not a dress rehearsal, not a practice round, the only one you get. And right now, that life is being stolen in increments so small you barely notice them disappearing. But they add up. Years from now, you'll either look back on this moment as the turning point where you decided to reclaim yourself, or you'll look back through a fog of regret, wondering where all the time went. The choice isn't between success and failure, it's between presence and absence, between living deliberately and drifting unconsciously. Your attention is the mechanism through which you experience reality. Lose your attention, and you lose your life while you're still breathing. So rebuild it, not because you want to be productive, because you want to be alive.